Welcome to the Legacy Radio Network. This is Everything Financial Radio. I'm your host, Dennis Tubbergen. We are here every week at this time. If you're a frequent listener, thanks for tuning back in. If you're a new listener, welcome. This show is all about education, educating you about the current economy and how it might affect you and your money. We also talk a little bit of politics on the program, and we also interview some very bright economists, some very bright guest experts. Today, in honor of Election Week, Mr. Jeffrey Tucker of Laissez-Faire Books is stopping by. Mr. Tucker has written a number of books, and he is a very interesting and colorful guy, certainly a libertarian-type thinker. I think you'll enjoy my interview with Mr. Tucker. Also, in honor of Election Week, I am going to talk a bit on today's program about unintended consequences. You know, it's interesting that a number of laws are passed with presumably good intentions, only to find that unintended consequences are often created. The Americans with Disabilities Act was an act designed to protect those who were disabled and help them retain and gain employment. Just the opposite has happened. The Endangered Species Act has actually destroyed habitat. We'll talk about these things on the program. Also, we're going to talk about number fudging as an art form. Boy, if that's not a tribute to many of the politicians in Washington, I don't know what is. Number fudging is an art form. The fact is that many of the politicians and policymakers in Washington, when they don't like the economic data that's being reported, they change the rules and they report it differently. We're going to talk about that on today's program as well. A lot to talk about. I'm going to remind you that if you've not yet gotten our free report, our 2012 guide, Surviving a Market Crash, you can go get the report online at investingapproach.com. Very easy. Just enter your name and your address. We'll mail you the report, mail it to you promptly. You'll get all our research and information, and it is purely all about education, letting you know where the economy is, what the data is, and what our view is. Also, we do some discovery groups. We've got one more coming up in November. They'll be winding down for this year. We do have a few seats available yet at Stonewater Country Club this Thursday, November the 8th. Stonewater is out in Caledonia, Michigan. All you need to do to register for a discovery group or to get more information is go to personallegacyseminars.com. That's personallegacyseminars.com. Just click on the link to get more information or to register while seats remain. We will be having, I believe, one more discovery group this year, and then we will be winding it down until probably February of next year. So if you've not attended a discovery group and you'd like to, this is certainly at least your second to last chance to do so. So personallegacyseminars.com to get more information. Also, a reminder, we're getting a lot of folks visiting the show's website at everythingfinancialradio.com. You can go to the website to listen to any interview we've done with any of our past guest experts, and the interview that I'll be doing today with Mr. Tucker will be posted there in one day from one day of the show's airing. So certainly go back, listen to that, use it as a resource. The site, once again, is everythingfinancialradio.com. I'm pleased to have back with me on the Everything Financial Radio Show today Mr. Jeffrey Tucker. Jeff is currently the executive editor of Laissez-Faire Books. He is a past editorial vice president of the Ludwig von Mises Institute and is the author of several books. I believe the most recent is Bourbon for Breakfast, Living Outside the Status Quo, as well as It's a Jetsons World, Private Miracles and Public Crimes. So, Jeff, thanks for coming back to the program.
It's good to be here. My most recent book is actually A Beautiful Anarchy, which is a kind of a reflection on some aspects of freedom that remain in the world and how they're the only real source of our prosperity at all, and the font of civilization to the extent that it's surviving, given the level of regulation and statism that we see in the economic life today.
I stand corrected. A Beautiful Anarchy, How to Create Your Own Civilization in the Digital Age is the most recent book. So
that's right.
Appreciate that. You know, we are, this interview is airing roughly a week before the U.S. elections. Jeffrey, give us your take on the major parties' presidential candidates and maybe their qualification, and then, if you'd like, your prediction as to how this plays out.
Well, you know, the thing that strikes me, and I've watched a little bit of the debates, in the same way that you know, when you drive by a crash on the road, you know, a pile up, you kind of, you know, tend to slow down and look. So that's what I've been doing, going watching a little bit of these debates. You know, it's perfectly silly. Neither of these two guys are any more qualified than anyone in the rest of the studio audience that's listening to them, or any of the viewers, to so-called run the country. They don't have the power. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the wisdom. It's all just a kind of a pretend. It's show business, and these guys are very, very good actors. But what they're pretending to be simply cannot exist in this world, which is central planners with the power and the wisdom to be able to manage every aspect of life. And yet that's sort of strangely what our political culture expects them to act like. They can't just answer a question, well, I really don't know, which is what they should be saying, you know, but instead it's just a lot of improvisation. So we expect preposterous things from these people. And another thing that always strikes me is that there's a myth at the heart of the entire election. It concerns how the state works. The reality of statecraft is that it doesn't need elected politicians to continue to do its damage. The damage will continue with or without them because of the permanent bureaucracy that's the real government. And the bureaucracy is administering laws, legislation, and rules that have a legacy dating back 100 years. And it's a kind of an autopilot machine that just runs regardless of what the candidates promise or the vision that they claim that they're going to bring to the world or anything else. And, you know, time and again, we elect these guys and then we get upset that they betray their promises, like, hey, how come we're not getting what they said they would give us? Well, you know, if I promise to build a skyscraper in your backyard by tomorrow morning and then it doesn't appear, I mean, you can claim that I betrayed my promise, I guess, but what about the fact that you believed it in the first place?
There is that.
Yeah. You know, so I don't know. I mean, we've got a strange political culture where everybody just kind of suspends any sense of reality and just kind of pretends as if these guys are what they say they are, and they're really not. So I don't pay a whole lot of attention to what they think or what they believe about their job and what they're doing, because I don't really actually think it matters that much. They have very little control, actually, as a matter of fact. The permanent bureaucracy is running everything, and I study this stuff every day. You know, I mean, just yesterday I was examining very carefully a new regulation that's being put out by the Department of Agriculture. It wasn't voted on by anybody in Congress. It wasn't approved or disapproved by any president or any justice. That will basically disallow home breeding and retail sale of pets. Well, this is a devastating rule. It's coming down the pike, and it's going to rob many, many people of their home businesses that are extremely lucrative and helpful for consumers, and they're just going to shut it down. And, you know, Romney doesn't know about this. Obama doesn't know about this. Not any elected official knows about this, and they can't control it if they did. This is all done by the administrative apparatus of the permanent bureaucracy. So that's what I would say is the real enemy we're fighting, and it's not one that has, you know, it's not subjected to any kind of plebiscite. You know, our votes really don't control it at all. And I would add to that the Federal Reserve is in a similar kind of position. You know, we've got a kind of a permanent apparatus that exists outside the electoral system. And I think that's what voters don't really get. You know, they're going through this kind of election ritual, you know, but it's all kind of designed to make us feel engaged, make us feel powerful, make us feel important, but it's essentially based on a myth.
Jeffrey, we have a couple minutes left in this segment, and I want to go back and have you just comment on the new regulation. That is news to me as well. First of all, what would be the reason the Department of Agriculture wouldn't want somebody breeding dachshunds and selling them to make extra money?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting thing. And by the way, I should add that the consequences of this are very interesting, because there's a lot of people who breed things that are kind of rare, out there. Flying squirrels, dingoes. You think there wouldn't be a market for these things, but there is a market for these things. People who are fanatics for these kinds of special pets are very connected, and the Internet provides a fantastic opportunity for regular people to get into the business. And you remember there was a website called Pets.com, and at the height of before the .com bust, that went through the roof. And the reason it went through the roof is that investors realized that this is a chance to connect breeders with potential owners that had not existed ever before in history, where you had to kind of like be local. Now you could do it on the Internet. That's why the stock went so high so fast without any capital or anything behind it. But yeah, they want to shut it down, and there's a number of forces at work here. There's a sort of Sinclair Lewis crowd that's warning about the dangers of puppy mills. That there are somehow households out there that are filled with dogs, and they're just cranking these things out for a profit or whatever, and that's supposed to be evil. There's also the problem of the large industry players, the corporate breeders themselves don't like the competition from regular people. So they're working very closely with the regulators.
Well, we are chatting with Mr. Jeffrey Tucker. We will continue our conversation with him, and we'll get his take on Fed policy and how it might affect you and your money when Everything Financial Radio returns on the Legacy Radio Network. Stay with us.